UFC Vegas 101, Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Hebos kick us off on the first UFC Apex card of the 2025 year. This is the Funk and Flex MMA preview and prediction show. While you're here, drop a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe on your way out. This is one of two videos I drop weekly, the Wednesday preview and prediction show you're watching, and Friday we drop the betting breakdown show. It really means a lot to see all the support that I received at the end of the 2024 year, and I'm excited to kick this card off with a lot of passion and enthusiasm, even though it is kind of the teaser before the stacked pay-per-view card that we get next week. Nonetheless, we still have a lot of good fights sprinkled throughout, so I won't waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump right into the first fight of the night between Narulo Aliev and Joe Selecki. And for me, guys, I hate to go ahead and just give you a minus 650 pick out the gate, but Narulo Aliev is a Dagestan wrestler from the Khabib camp, and he even looks spitting image of him. If I'm not mistaken, he might be one of the clones of Khabib straight from Dagestan, one of the cousins at the very least. But Joe Selecki is a good jiu-jitsu guy with decent hands. I just don't think that he's going to be able to keep up with anything that Aliev has to offer in the wrestling game. And maybe I'm wrong, and the jiu-jitsu from Joe Selecki can get him in good positions and even potentially get a guillotine or something on a sloppy takedown. But I haven't seen anything from Aliev in his amateur 9-0 debut, even in Dana White Contender Series, that leads me to believe he is not capable of dominating Joe Selecki and even some of the guys in the lower top 15. So go ahead and give me Aliev for the first pick of the night. Up next, we have a matchup between Fatima Klein and Victoria Dudakova. Fatima Klein, the training partner of Erin Blanchfield, who is a title contender in this division. However, she's going up against Dudakova, and a lot of people I think are expecting a big size disadvantage as Dudakova moving up in weight, which is not her first time doing this. And even though my lean on this pick is Fatima Klein, as I think she trains at the better gym with the better partner with Erin Blanchfield, and I do think this is going to be a grappling match. I think Victoria Dudakova has what it takes to win some of the exchanges on the ground, and I think that she is actually going to look like the superior striker in this match. So even though I may lean Fatima Klein, as generally I tend to do in women's MMA with the dominant wrestlers, I'm gonna have to go ahead and fade this one because and maybe even bet on Dudakova because I think that she is the value side at plus 550. But for the pick's sake, go ahead and give me Fatima Klein. Up next, we have a matchup between Gadzia Gulav and Bruno Lopez. And for this one, guys, I'm going to go ahead and have to go with Gadzia Zulov. Bruno Lopez is a tough fighter, and I do think he's going to be a good prospect at this weight class. But I have to go with the guy that I think is the better boxer and the better wrestler. When you have that combo, it's tough to lose a fight. But I just think Gadzia Gulav is the better head movement. Bruno Lopez really sits straight. And with Gadzia Zulov's counter-striking ability, when Bruno Lopez comes in and tries to create those explosive moments, Gadzia Zulov's going to either be able to counter-strike effectively or he's going to be able to mix in the wrestling and takedowns. I don't think Bruno Lopez's grappling is going to be good enough to counter it, and for that, I'm going to have to go with Gadzia Zulov. Even though he is a minus 225 chalky pick, I think he gets it done and goes to 10-0. Up next, we have a matchup between Ernesta Caricate and Nicole Cagliari. And this is another one, guys, that I think is just severely mispriced. I really like Nicole Cagliari here. As I mentioned earlier, I tend to lean in women's MMA towards the better wrestler. And while I don't know if Nicole Cagliari is necessarily the better wrestler, I guarantee you she is the better grappler in this matchup. I think that a lot of people are blindly betting on this, just looking at the size disadvantage that she has with the 6 inches in reach and actually 9 inches in reach, and 6 inches in height. I do have to say Cagliari is dangerous when it gets to the ground. And we see a lot of times at the end of these fights when women MMA doesn't end in finishes generally, we go to the end of the fight. When it sees that third round and people are running low on stamina, I like to have my money on the jiu-jitsu specialist who can wrap up a submission towards the end of the fight when it falls to the ground. Um, and even though I think that Nicole Cagliari could probably get takedowns early on in the fight too. So that being said, I'm going to go with the plus 225 dog. Finally, give you guys some value from a betting perspective as my pick. We're going Nicole Cagliari. Up next, we have a matchup between Preston Parsons and the newcomer Jacoby Smith, fresh off of the Dana White Contender Series domination. He has just looked stellar in his 9-0 record. And as much as I like to pick Preston Parsons, who's the UFC experience and a plus 375 underdog, I just can't talk myself into the value bet. I'm going to have to pick Jacoby Smith for this one. I do think that he just gets in phenomenal shape for 170 pounds. He's shredded. I think that he can just outpace Preston Parsons and really just cleaner, crisper striking on the feet. If it gets to the ground, maybe Preston Parsons can surprise something, grab something that we haven't seen in some sort of submission. You never can count that out when Preston Parsons' experience and he's evolving every fight. But that being said, I do think Jacoby Smith is by far the cleaner striker, and probably a minus 550 tag is well worth warranted on this spot. So go ahead and give me Jacoby Smith for the pick. Up next, we have a matchup between Thiago Moises and Trey Ogden. And for this one, I think I'm going to lean towards Trey Ogden in this. Even though he is the 6-year-old fighter, we don't see too many favorites that are that much older. I think it shows you that Thiago Moises is kind of just washed at this point. I think Trey Ogden still has a little bit in the gas tank. And while I do think that stylistically they match up well, both kind of being grinding fighters, I think that Trey Ogden has the better chin, and I do think that he's going to be the side that you got to pick in this one. So without further ado, won't waste much time. We're going to go ahead and go Trey Ogden as the pick on this one. Up next, we have a really enticing matchup, in my opinion, between Marco Tulio and Ihor Potieria. Potieria coming off of the questionable loss against Cesar Almeida, where he was getting fouled left and right and was still finding ways to shine in between and show really, quick and good performance. Even though he was getting pieced up in certain areas, it was really after he get fouled, he would come out strong and land several combos and showed some good hands in that fight against a good kickboxer in Cesar Almeida, who we'll be talking about later in this video. Fighting against Marco Tulio, coming in as a shoot box guy who's, as you can see by the minus 550 odd, is supposed to just kind of dog walk Ihor Potieria. And I don't see that really happening in this. I do think that Tulio could win this fight, and he probably is the pick in this side. Not to leave you guys, flip-flopping on what I'm saying here, but I think that Ihor Potieria is one of those fighters that I was talking about earlier who can give some veteran experience and check a younger up-and-coming fighter who's used to just kind of walking through most of his opponents with the 12-1 record. Give me Marco Tulio for the pick, but when you see the betting breakdown on Friday, don't be surprised to see some Ihor Potieria bets on there. Up next, we have a matchup between Jose Bones Johnson and Felipe Bunes. And I think that this is a really live spot for Bunes to win as a dog here. He's going to be my pick for this one. I think that Jose Johnson really has not impressed much when it comes to a competitive fight. He beats the people that he's supposed to dominate, but when you see close odds of minus 200 or less where he's a moderate favorite, I tend to see the other guys give him real problems. 6 feet at 125 pounds. Don't look at the graphic. I guess there's a typo there, guys. They are fighting at 125 pounds. Nonetheless, 6 feet is kind of crazy that he gets down that low. 5'7", Felipe Bunes is not the smallest guy for 125 either. And I think that he has a very good, matchup for Jose Johnson on the ground. If he can get some takedowns, I don't think Jose Johnson's going to be able to survive. I think it's going to be a competitive striking match. And that being said, I really just don't see why Johnson's a minus 190 favorite. And that I'm going to have to go with Felipe Bunes for the pick on this one. Up next, we have a matchup between Punahele Soriano and Ruos Medic. And for this one, I'm going to have to go Uros Medic. Again, I think that he's the better boxer and wrestler. And not to keep repeating that tonight, but when you're seeing it this clearly, you got to call it. And I think Medic is the better fighter overall. I think Punahele Soriano is a dog, and I do think that he could potentially make this a dog fight by just exploding and, getting in the face of Uros Medic. But I think Medic has seen it before, and I think that he's going to be able to weather the storm early on and really show some flashy moments later as the fight goes, and potentially get a late finish in this. If not, definitely do enough in the fight to win the decision. So go ahead and give me Uros Medic. Up next, we have potentially my favorite fight on the card, a matchup between Christian Rodriguez and Austin Bashi. Bashi, the contender coming off of the Dana White Contender Series, and even though he's only 23 years old, he's been a social media star, or maybe not star, but he's been very popular on mixed martial arts social media with his dominant wrestling style, compared to Merab in a lot of MMA articles and narratives and talks. At 145, he's just that chain wrestling pressure style and coming in as a smoking hot prospect. But surprisingly, the UFC didn't give him the easiest of matchups in his first fight. Christian Rodriguez is known as the guy for spoiling parties for newcomers into the UFC. And even though he is coming off of a loss to Julian Erosa, I do think that he is or has the potential to beat Austin Bashi in this matchup. And I think it should be a coin flip fight. So even though I kind of want to tend to lean Austin Bashi, as he's just looked absolutely dominant in every sort of combat contest that I've seen him competing in, whether it be wrestling, jiu-jitsu, or mixed martial arts. I do think that Christian Rodriguez may have that veteran experience to come and check Austin Bashi, as he's done it before with guys like Isaac Dalgarian and Raul Rosas Jr. Christian Rodriguez might have got veteran checked against a guy in Julian Erosa, and it was in Denver at high altitude. So at the end of the round, he may have gas tapped, uh, just been stamina drained and tapped. It didn't look like that deep of a submission to me. Just saying, not to say that I think Christian Rodriguez has a ton of quit in him, but that being said, I don't think Austin Bashi is the kind to gas. So I do want to lean Austin Bashi for the pick, but I am going to probably be betting Christian Rodriguez on this side. So I'm just going to leave you guys with that. The stamp on my name is probably going to have Austin Bashi for the pick this week, though. Next up, we have a matchup between Chris Curtis and Roman Kopylov. And if the matchup between Rodriguez and Bashi isn't my favorite, this would definitely take the cake as number two or tied. I don't know how this fight isn't the main event or co-main event. This is a very exciting matchup and a lot of ramifications on the line, as Kopylov has been on a tear recently, beating Cesar Almeida and just really surprising a lot of people with that one. And Chris Curtis has kind of been that, top 15 gatekeeper spot. Not to call Chris Curtis a gatekeeper, as I am a Chris Curtis fan. Trains at, a tough gym with Sean Strickland, and he just spars all the time. So you know that he's going to come in and his striking is going to look crisp. But what we've seen from Roman Kopylov, his precision striking from distance and his grappling and takedowns that he's been mixing into his last couple of fights, I think I'd be a fool to not pick him here. I don't love the minus 270 price tag. He is going to be the pick this week. We're going to have to probably find a different angle if we're going to bet this one. But for pick's sakes, it's going to be Roman Kopylov. And I may just sit back and enjoy this one as a fan. And maybe even, I won't be mad if Chris Curtis wins. Up next, we have a matchup between Cesar Almeida and Razak Al Hassan. And I don't know how this fight is the third fight on the card, the featured fight. As I mentioned earlier, Cesar Almeida lost to Kopylov in the fight before this. The placements on this card doesn't really make sense as I have it so far, so hopefully they move some things around. But as it stands, this is the featured fight before the co-main event. And I think that just shows that they're trying to build Cesar Almeida, this glory kickboxer, a guy that's fought Alex Pereira before, 185. If Pereira makes the return, he could be a contender if he can get some wins together. I mean, Kopylov definitely checked him. He looked questionable against Ihor Potieria, and Razak Al Hassan is no bitch. And I say that lightly because I know that Razak Al Hassan is 12-6 and not the most glorious record. That being said, Razak Al Hassan has some heavy hands, and if he lays them on you early, like Cesar Almeida was getting touched up against Roman Kopylov, I think Al Hassan has much heavier hands and could put away Almeida early. That being said, if the fight goes later, I think Cesar Almeida is going to be able to use those kickboxing skills and get the win. So I will be picking Cesar Almeida in this one, probably betting him by decision and maybe sprinkling Razak Al Hassan on the round 1 KO. On to the co-main event, we have a matchup between the veteran Santiago Ponzinibbio and Carlston Harris. Matchup of two veterans, to be honest. Several UFC fights between the two. Uh, I do think that this is a coin flip fight, so this is one that the odds makers have priced correctly. But I am going to lean Santiago Ponzinibbio in this one. We've seen recently Carlston Harris really has not liked getting hit, and Santiago Ponzinibbio's always been a dog. That Argentinian, fire in him. And while I would not tend to normally lean or bet on Ponzinibbio as a 38-year-old fighter, when he's fighting a 37-year-old fighter that's the same size and only a couple inch reach advantage, I am going to lean and probably bet on Santiago Ponzinibbio in this spot. So go ahead and give me him for the pick in the co-main event, as I think that he has the crisper boxing and he will be able to survive the power of Carlston Harris early on, in my opinion. So, yep, give me him for the pick in this fight. On to the main event of the evening, we have Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas, the rematch. It's tough for me to see this one going any other way than it did the first time, which is why it toughs me to say that, because I think Ribas is going to get the win in this. And it's not a hate on Amanda Ribas. I am just a big Mackenzie Dern fan. She's one of my favorite female fighters. I just absolutely love her toughness, and she has other assets as well too. Not to sound like a creep online, but she is a beautiful MMA fighter, and you don't see too many of those. So she's a fan favorite for many, and in this one, she's going to be a heavily bet spot at plus 170 just because people are going to want to root for her. It's not only because she's an attractive fighter, but because she also does put on exciting fights, and you very rarely ever see her leave the cage with her face looking the same as it did when she walked in there. So for that reason, I'm gonna lean and pick Mackenzie Dern, even though out of sheer honesty, I'm saying Amanda Ribas is probably gonna win this fight. I'm gonna have my money on Mackenzie Dern as I want to root for it. Um, and that being said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and leave the video there and end this week on that note. I do appreciate you guys making it to this point of the video. If you're still here, go ahead and drop an 18 in the comment section to let me know you've made it this far. I have a lot of exciting stuff coming up this new year. 2025 is going to be a huge year for the Funk and Flex brand, especially Funk and Flex MMA. We're looking to get into other sports this year and a lot of other stuff that I'm not really even going to mention now. But that being said, thank you so much for all the support again. Smash the like button, and let's go ahead and cash some tickets this week and prepare to make some even more money on UFC 311 next week. Thank you guys again. Much love.